Welcome to 60 Skills. Today we will learn how to concentrate. Learning how to concentrate is a three-part process. First, you learn how to observe your thoughts. Second, you will learn single point of focus, or how to look at an individual object clearly. 3, you will learn how to develop thought vacuity, or an emptiness or lack of thoughts. As a bonus to this program, you will also learn how to merge with light, which by itself is an enlightenment level technique. The simple fact of the matter is, most people do not know how to actually concentrate. They cannot maintain their focus beyond a time period of a few seconds at a time. By learning the material in this course, you will rapidly develop the ability to focus on a single object for 5 minutes or longer. This will have a variety of benefits to you, not only in your day-to-day life, but also in your meditative pursuits. The simple fact of the matter is, if you cannot focus for a minimum of 5 minutes without interruption, there are many techniques in the meditative world that do not work. So, I look forward to your joining me on this adventure. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss watching your thoughts. The simple fact of the matter is, most people have a variety of background information playing in their mind at all times. This information usually does not arise from a conscious choice, but is usually the result of random events throughout their life. How you were raised, things you did at work, things that occurred to you at school, seemingly random encounters out in public, all went to flavor this background information. This subconscious information can also have a lot to do with how we develop as people. It's kind of like having a random message playing in the background. You have no conscious knowledge of this, but it ends up influencing your thoughts and choices throughout life. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you choose to look at it, your subconscious largely operates like a rather unintelligent computer. It picks up programming and it just continues to run with it until it absolutely does not work anymore. It largely does this passively and does not put any programmatic effort into it. The result of which is most people can only overcome this through active choices. And these active choices take a lot of willpower to occur. And unfortunately, willpower is always in limited supply. The result of which is, if you are just using willpower to change yourself, you tend to end up being very limited in what you can focus on at any one point in time. Fortunately, as meditative practitioners, we have a variety of tools at our disposal to change this. Watching your thoughts is one of those fundamental techniques. And please keep in mind, this is not a one-and-done practice either. Even after you attain a certain level with this exercise, you will need to revisit it from time to time to make sure things have not popped up in there that, quite frankly, are not conducive to your existence. So, how is this performed? Very simply put, you sit down, you start a watch, you close your eyes, and you just see what happens for the next several minutes. The things that come up can be quite surprising. At this point, you will need to make a choice to either record, as in write down what you observed, or simply write down the amount of time you practiced for and whether or not your attention got broken by outside events during this time. With practice, it is possible to engage in this technique out in the open phenomenal world. However, also in practice, in the beginning, it is extremely helpful to do this in a quiet space. As has been discussed many times throughout this program, finding a place to practice in is very important. As having your own personal practice space is often not practical, finding a place and time can frequently work in its stead, and we will discuss that later on. Regardless, in the beginning when you do this exercise, you are going to want to practice it in a quiet place where you are not apt to be disturbed. You can then choose to write down what you observe or not. The key to this exercise is you practice the exercise until moving on to the next portion, until your thoughts essentially stop. The process of watching your thoughts, strangely enough, gradually makes them go away. So, this clearing out, or for lack of a better term, esoteric hygiene aspect of watching your thoughts is its most valuable part. Your thoughts themselves largely have no meaning. It's just random information programmed into your background. However, by paying attention to it, your active, phenomenal mind gets a grasp on what your subconscious mind is engaged in. And over time, it just filters that out. A side effect of this is that you'll notice during the course of your normal day that you are much more focused, much calmer, and much more content. Because this background noise, kind of like the music that they have playing in a cheap restaurant, isn't there anymore. And what you'll find is that that background noise tends to be rather irritating to most people, and is one of the reasons why a lot of people without much training in the meditative arts seem to walk around in a constant state of agitation. This is a very easy way to get rid of this. So again, all you have to do is watch your thoughts until they stop. As a practical matter, this could take a couple days or a couple weeks. It really just depends upon you. But that is how the process of watching your thoughts operates. Let us continue to the next part of the course. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss single point of focus. Single point of focus is what most people intuitively think of when you mention concentration. You are literally looking at a single object and holding your attention there. Interestingly enough, most people cannot do this for more than a few seconds. I have quite literally never met a single individual in my life who could naturally concentrate. This is a learned skill, and it is a very important skill. Now, this can be practiced one of two ways. It can be practiced with your eyes closed as a form of active visualization, in which you look at an object, put it down, and then recreate that object in your mind. However, it can also be performed by taking an object, such as my glasses, putting it down in front of you, and looking at it. Not allowing your attention to diverge one way or the other, just holding it there. In both cases, what you will do is you will record the amount of time that you can do this for without your attention breaking, some random image coming up in your mind, or your mind floating off. You need to be able to perform this technique for a minimum of 5 minutes without interruption. There are many reasons for this. On a practical basis, simply being able to pay attention to something for 5 minutes filters out a lot of the emotional background that comes with people when they are having an argument or a disagreement. This is very valuable. Additionally, focusing your mind on a single object increases willpower tremendously. And so this works as a kind of feedback loop. On the one hand, you're calmer and able to filter out the mental aspect of what you were paying attention to from its astral or emotional or sensational aspect. And on the other hand, you now have more willpower to work with. This exercise by itself can be quite transformative in the case of many people. As an additional note, modern society with the use of electronic devices and nonstop media, these things basically destroy your ability to focus. Because as a natural survival mechanism, we are inclined to focus on something that moves. So if something moves out of the corner of your eye, you pay attention to it. This is to protect yourself. Unfortunately, these little devices we carry around with ourselves create an environment where this is going on all the time. The result of which is people tend to wander around in a state of heightened awareness or agitation. Learning how to concentrate through the single-pointed focus exercises defeats this. As such, it is also an excellent way to start your day. Many meditative systems only use this technique. And for a lot of people, this is really all they need. First, empty out your mind through watching your thoughts, so this background programming information goes away. And two, learn how to pay attention. As I said, for most people, this is really all they need. Now, there is another aspect to this single point of focus exercise. Remember how I talked about earlier about looking at an object in front of you? The example being my glasses. If you maintain your focus on a single object long enough, your perception of the energy around that object changes. This can be, by the way, an enlightenment level technique all on its own. First, you will be staring at something, and you will be in the vital realm. Fair enough. That's where we spend most of our time anyway. However, after a few minutes of looking at that object without interruption, you'll notice time seems to slow down. Everything gets a kind of liquid or thick sensation associated with it. Your sense of perception has now entered the astral. Very curious. If you wait a little longer, you'll notice the emotion or energy associated with the thing that you're looking at goes away as well. At this point, people can begin to have a bunch of spatial effects where they begin to see light, or the object in front of them takes on a kind of timeless quality, or it might start to move around dimensionally a little bit. Well, now you're entering the mental realm, or mental energy. Very curious. If you keep your eye on this object long enough, and this can take a few years, you'll eventually get to the stage where the object begins to disappear. It will literally flicker in front of you. Here's the crazy part. If that happens, and someone who is standing away from you watches the object at the same time, they'll see it disappear as well. More curious. Well, this represents akasha. Beyond that stage, which can take even longer, is the realm of non-dual light. So just this act of paying attention shows you how the universe works. So classical exercises where you would have someone stare at a rock for an extended period of time, what it was doing is it's passively teaching you how the different energies work. Very valuable. But it also gives us an interesting lesson on the nature of impermanence and how things are largely made up of empty space. Although that is a discussion for a later time. So I think we've spoken enough about the importance of the single-pointed focus exercises. Let us move on to emptiness meditation or thought vacuity. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss emptiness or thought vacuity meditation. What is this? Quite simply put, it is meditating upon nothing. It is holding your mind completely empty. Now, in some ways, you can view this as an extension of the watching of thoughts exercise. And as a practical matter, you will want to start with this. However, the process of thought vacuity is very curious. As a natural survival mechanism, your mind is usually occupied with something at all points in time. Whether that's crossing the street and looking both ways to make sure a car isn't coming, walking through the woods, paying attention to where your feet are going, or looking out for animals. So, as a natural matter, man's mind is generally full of thoughts. Now, we've already established how watching your thoughts can cause all of this background information to slowly just go away. Thought vacuity, on the other hand, reveals our inner nature. It is literally a meditation upon emptiness, which is a code word for the void. Meditating upon emptiness can allow your true nature to arise. But usually before that happens, the void comes first. Well, what is the void? Some people refer to this as akasha. Some people refer to this as that state of nothingness from which duality arose. The one and the zero, the light and the dark. Simply put, emptying your mind out and maintaining that emptiness allows form to arise. It is really quite curious. This again by itself can be an enlightenment level technique. As a general rule, you need to be able to maintain thought vacuity or emptiness of thoughts for a minimum of 5 minutes. A variety of reasons for this exist, but first of which is it reinforces all of your other efforts to concentrate. You can't really focus on something until you make sure there's nothing there to begin with. Continued practice of this can lead to the arising of this dark purple-colored energy in your mind's eye, otherwise known as akasha, which is the first sign of the void. There is no need to do this, however. Simply emptying out your mind and staring back at that nothingness is the important part. And this, by emptying your mind out, is one of the first stages in truly freeing your mind. Because you can't know yourself and you can't be completely in control of yourself as long as there's something else there. Because that something else is going to latch onto you and it's going to impact your thoughts throughout the day. So again, thought emptiness needs to be maintained for at least 5 minutes. Once you can do that, you can move on to the follow-on exercise known as Merge with Light. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss posture and practice. As is the case for many meditative skills, you simply want a stable seated position. Some people with adequate flexibility in their hips can sit on the floor on a cushion. Other people who lack this should use a chair. There's no real advantage of one over the other for the most part. The important part is that you are completely comfortable. If you are in a seated position that is uncomfortable, maintaining your sense of concentration is extremely difficult. And since many of the things that we will deal with in this course are subtle in nature, maintaining your attention on that subtle thing when your hips or lower back hurt generally cannot happen. So check your ego and use a place and way of sitting that is most comfortable to you. There are a couple of other things you will need to do. 1, you will want to suspend your spine by pulling from the top of the head as if connected by a string. 2, you will want to place your tongue on either the roof of your mouth if you're comfortable doing this, or behind your 2 front teeth on the skin. 3, you will want to choose a way of breathing. For some people, breathing in their nose and out their nose works best. For others, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth works best. Choose one of these 2 and make it your default pattern. Next, you will want to put your hands in a comfortable resting position. Depending upon the shape and size of your body, the knees may work very well for this. If not, you can also use the arms of a chair. Depending on whether or not you have any shoulder injuries, you can cross your hands in front of you. Again, the point here is to put your hands and arms in a comfortable resting position where there isn't any tension on your body, and therefore it will not distract your attention. Finally, and this is important, regardless of how you sit, you want your back to be freely suspended. So you don't want your back touching a chair like this, nor do you want to be leaning too much in one direction or another. You generally want the spine to be straight. Again, the point here is to be as comfortable as possible, and pressure on the lower back tends to be distracting. Now, if you have a long-term lower back injury or some other problem that requires additional support, if that's what you need to not be distracted by that issue, then do it. Nothing is doctrine here. The point of your seated position is to allow you to concentrate. And you cannot do that if there is something about that position that is distracting. Finally, we will discuss the position of your body. For the most part, you want a seated position where the legs touch. In the beginning, this will be difficult to do. You may need to use a belt to hold your knees together. The reason for this goes into structure and ligament and tendon training, but essentially a straight spine coupled with legs in a steady position in a body in a comfortable resting position allows subtle energy to move through the body much more efficiently. Now again, depending upon the shape of your body, your knees may or may not touch. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure your legs are touching and they're pointed straight ahead. And whatever you need to do to be comfortable in that position is ultimately the most important part. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now conduct the Watching Your Thoughts exercise. First, take your stable seated position in a quiet place. Have your notebook, pen, and timing device in front of you. A lot of people prefer a conventional watch or a conventional clock as they find the radiation coming off of cellular devices to be distracting. It really is up to you. In any event, if you are going to use a cellular phone, make sure to turn the phone's receptivity to the off setting. Some people refer to this as the airplane setting or airplane mode. That way the phone will not disturb you while you are conducting your exercise. You will then close your eyes and for 5 minutes simply watch your thoughts. The exercise may also be conducted with your eyes open after a period of time. At the end of 5 minutes, stop and write down your observations if you have any that you care to write down. Keeping in mind, the more things you write down, the more often you are inclined to hold on to those items. Additionally, it is important to remember that you should also write down and note the time at which your attention wandered off and you were distracted from your thoughts. This is generally a sign that you need to find a quieter place to practice, but not always. So, assume your stable, seated position. Set your alarm for 5 minutes, and let us begin. I see we've gone over a little bit in our time. Return to yourself. Focus your thoughts back upon the body. You can place it into your lower abdomen. You can pour breathe a little bit if you know how to do that. To recenter the mind. All right. At this point in time, you should stop the course and write down any thoughts that you have. Once you've done that, start the camera up again. And you'll notice that a few things went on here. Some things came to mind that probably had to do with your day-to-day life, which is normal. But there might be some other things going on in the background. These things could have been there for quite some time. Applying a little bit of reflection of those things may be valuable, or it may cause you to hold on to them even tighter. In either event, this is a decision that you need to make. And this gets to an important part of the course. What you record in your journal is for you. It's not for anyone else. This is not a sharing exercise. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of what comes up is just garbage. It got into the back of your mind somehow, and it's probably been there for years. The reason why this journal needs to be for you and for no one else is so that no matter what comes up, you feel completely free to note it. If this is something you are sharing with others, you might be worried about writing down something that's a little embarrassing or that you might find a little strange. Regardless, as long as this document is strictly for you, then you are completely free to do whatever you want with it. For this reason, I highly recommend using paper with a conventional notebook, as things that are posted online, regardless of the security of the medium, well, let's just say it's not really that secure. So I hope you enjoyed this first part of the exercise, and I look forward to working with you on the rest of it. Let us begin. Things not covered in this course. If after several weeks or several months of practice, you find that you're not doing any better at these exercises, it's time to start asking yourself some questions as to why that is. One of my teachers once told me, you cannot beat the monkey, and the monkey is us. The simple fact of the matter is, your body has a tremendous influence over your ability to concentrate, your ability to perceive the universe around you, and your ability to engage with that universe. If you completely lack the ability to concentrate and none of these techniques are working, you may need to explore the fact that there's a physical basis for your problem. So here is time for some tough love. If you're 100 pounds overweight, well, then you're going to have trouble breathing, which means you're going to have trouble concentrating. If you have a severe drug habit, if you get inadequate sleep, if you're exhausted all the time from overwork, all of these things are going to impact your ability to concentrate. If you're simply trying to do too much at one time, you're not going to be able to do it either. At this point in time, you're going to need to decide what changes to your life you want to make. If you want to continue to engage in a vice that makes it difficult to concentrate, then you're going to have to live with the fact that you're not going to be able to concentrate. If, on the other hand, you decide that learning how to concentrate is more valuable than your vice, then you're going to need to learn how to live without it. This is something to keep in mind. The body is always the mechanism for our engagement with the phenomenal world. If there's something wrong with the body, our ability to engage the world around us is going to be compromised. So again, I'm not saying this to scold anybody, but the fact of the matter is, our physicality has as much to do with our mentality as anything else. And so you should keep this in mind. This is also why journaling is very valuable. You should journal after every practice session. And the reason for this is very simple. Human beings are bad observers of their own behavior. A teacher can yell at a student all day long about their inability to do something. But when you see that thing written down in front of you in your own hand, it's kind of hard to deny what's going on. And this is both beneficial and a little self-critical. But here's the thing about the meditative process. It is largely a process of self-criticism. Notice I did not say self-loathing or self-hatred. It's a matter of noting our imperfections and working on them. And as such, it is a rather unique technology. So I thank you for your time, and let us begin.